She jumped out of the black SUV like she owned the entire road. "Turn that fence off right now," she shouted across my yard. Her voice carried all the way to the barn. I leaned against the wooden post near the gate and didn't move. The electric fence crackled quietly beside me, blue sparks snapping every few seconds. Behind her, the HOA SUV was parked halfway inside my ranch fence, its front tires already touching the wire. I glanced at it once, then back at her. "You parked it there," I said calmly. She walked closer, heels digging into the gravel like she was marching into a war. "This is HOA enforcement property," she snapped. "We can park wherever we need to when dealing with violations." "Violations?" I almost laughed. "This is private land," I said. She pointed at a paper taped to my gate. "A notice was issued yesterday." I hadn't even looked at it yet. She crossed her arms. "You have livestock fencing that violates neighborhood safety guidelines." I slowly looked across my ranch. Acres of open land, 2 horses grazing quietly, a red barn older than half the houses in this county, and 1 electric fence that had been here longer than the HOA itself. "Your neighborhood ends 3 miles that way," I said, pointing toward the road. Her smile was thin and smug. "Not anymore." That made me pause. She turned and waved toward the SUV. A man inside it lifted a clipboard like he was part of something official. "New expansion vote passed last month," she said. "Your land is now under HOA jurisdiction." I stared at her. Then I looked at the paper on my gate. It wasn't even printed straight. Cheap ink. No county stamp. Just a bold title. HOA compliance warning. I peeled it off slowly. "You drove 30 minutes out here," I said, "to tape fake paper on my ranch." Her face tightened. "It's not fake." Behind her, the SUV driver opened the door and stepped out. Big guy. Orange safety vest. Trying very hard to look important. He walked up beside her. "You have 24 hours to remove this fence," he said flatly. I looked at the wire humming beside us. "That fence keeps my horses from walking onto the highway," I said. Karen waved her hand like none of that mattered. "You should have thought of that before violating HOA codes." I nodded slowly. "Right?" Then I glanced again at their SUV. The front bumper was now pressed directly against the electric wire. I noticed something else too. They hadn't turned the vehicle off. Engine still running. Headlights still on. I pushed away from the post. "You might want to move your car," I said. Karen rolled her eyes. "Don't try to scare me with that redneck electric tone." Her driver chuckled. "It's probably not even powered." I shrugged. "Maybe." The wire snapped again. Crack. A small blue spark jumped against the metal bumper. Both of them froze for a second. Then the driver waved it off. Static. Karen smirked again. "You have until tomorrow," she said, "or we'll have the county remove that fence for you." County. That word hung in the air. I studied her face carefully. Confident. Too confident. Like she thought she already knew the outcome. Then she did something interesting. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small radio. "Go ahead and mark this property," she told the driver. He nodded and walked toward the SUV, but before he could open the door, the fence snapped again, this time louder. Crack. A bright spark jumped from the wire to the bumper. The SUV jerked slightly. The driver jumped back. "What the?" Karen turned quickly. Her eyes narrowed. "You said it wasn't powered." I rubbed the back of my neck. "I didn't say that." The driver looked at the bumper again, then down at the wire touching it. "You should probably back it up," I said. Karen shook her head immediately. "Don't touch the vehicle," she ordered him. "He's trying to intimidate us." The driver hesitated. The fence popped again. Crack. Another spark. He stepped back again. "Karen, I think, just move it," she snapped. He reached for the door handle. The moment his hand touched the metal frame, the entire fence line snapped violently. A loud bzzzt ripped through the air. The man screamed and yanked his hand away like the SUV had bitten him. Karen jumped backward. "What just happened?" The driver shook his hand wildly. "That thing is live." I folded my arms. "Yes." Karen glared at me. "You did that on purpose." I tilted my head. "You parked on my fence." She pointed at the wire. "You set a trap." "No," I said calmly. "I set a fence." For a moment she just stared at me. Then she pulled out her phone. "Fine," she said. "If you want to play games, we'll do this the legal way." She tapped the screen aggressively. "I'm calling the sheriff." I didn't react. The driver was still staring nervously at the SUV. Karen paced while the phone rang. "Hello," she said suddenly. "Yes, I need an officer out here immediately. She looked straight at me while she talked. Yes, a hostile property owner. Pause. He electrified his fence and attacked an HOA enforcement vehicle. Another pause. Her smile slowly came back. Yes, she said. We're waiting. She hung up and crossed her arms again. You're in serious trouble. I looked at the SUV. The bumper still resting against the electric wire. The engine still running. The fence still snapping quietly. Then I looked back at her. You might want to move it before the sheriff gets here, I said. Karen laughed. Oh, don't worry, she said. Once they arrive, you'll be the one moving. I nodded slowly. Maybe. Then I glanced down the long dirt road leading to my ranch entrance. Because far in the distance, a patrol truck had just turned through the gate, and the moment I saw which patrol truck it was, I sighed quietly. Karen had no idea whose ranch she had just parked on. Karen saw the patrol truck coming down the dirt road and smiled, like she had just won something. There, she said, pointing. Perfect timing. Dust rolled behind the truck as it drove slowly toward the ranch gate. The engine of the HOA SUV was still humming beside the electric fence, the wire snapping quietly every few seconds. The driver was rubbing his hand and staring at the bumper like it might bite him again. Karen didn't care. She stood straight, fixing her jacket, preparing for the show. You should start thinking about an apology, she told me. I didn't answer. The patrol truck kept getting closer. I watched it the whole way. Karen was already talking before the truck even stopped. Officer, thank you for coming, she called out loudly. The truck rolled to a stop near the gate. The door opened slowly. A tall deputy stepped out, adjusting his hat as he looked around the ranch. His eyes moved across the horses, the barn, the fence, the SUV touching the wire. Then they landed on me. For a second his face didn't change. Then he gave a small nod. Morning, he said. Morning, I replied. Karen stepped forward quickly. Officer, thank goodness you're here, she said. This man assaulted HOA property and… The deputy raised a hand. Hold on. Karen blinked. He walked a few steps closer to the fence and looked at the SUV. Bumper touching the wire. The fence popped again. Crack. A small spark flashed. The deputy looked at the driver. Did you park that there? The man hesitated. Karen answered for him. We're conducting an HOA enforcement inspection. The deputy slowly turned his head toward her. Inspection of what? This ranch, she said confidently. He looked around again. Who authorized that? Karen pulled out the folded paper from her pocket and handed it over. New HOA expansion. Property violations. The deputy took the paper. He studied it for a few seconds. Then his eyebrow lifted. He flipped it over. Then looked at her again. Where did you get this? Karen crossed her arms. Our legal department. The deputy didn't say anything for a moment. He just folded the paper carefully. Then he handed it back. This isn't a legal notice. Karen's smile froze. Yes, it is. No, he said calmly. It isn't. The driver shifted nervously. Karen pointed at me. He electrified his fence and attacked our vehicle. The deputy looked at the SUV again. The wire popped. Crack. Another spark hit the bumper. Then he looked back at the driver. You tried to open the door. The man nodded slowly. Yeah. It shocked the hell out of me. The deputy scratched his jaw. Then he looked at me. That fence been here long. About 12 years, I said. He nodded. County permit? In the barn office. Karen stepped forward again, voice getting louder. This is completely irrelevant. He's threatening HOA officials. The deputy turned to her slowly. Ma'am, where exactly do you think the HOA boundary is? Karen pointed down the road, past the subdivision entrance. That's 5 miles away, the deputy said. Her eyes narrowed. That changed last month. According to who? The HOA board. The deputy looked back toward the distant road. Then he sighed quietly. You drove all the way out here to enforce HOA rules on a ranch outside city zoning. Karen lifted her chin. This property was included in the expansion vote. The deputy looked at me again. Did you attend an HOA vote? Nope. Ever signed HOA membership papers? No. Karen jumped in. You don't need to sign if the property falls inside jurisdiction. The deputy slowly looked back at her. That's not how that works. Her smile disappeared. Well, that's what our board said. The deputy's expression didn't change. Then he asked something that made the driver suddenly uncomfortable. Which board member sent you out here? Karen answered instantly. David Collins. The deputy blinked once. Then he looked at the SUV again. Collins drives this vehicle? Yes, Karen said proudly. He's head of enforcement. The deputy rubbed his forehead slowly. For a moment, he didn't say anything. Then he walked toward the SUV and looked at the license plate. His lips moved slightly like he was reading something. Then he stepped back. Interesting. Karen frowned. What is? He looked at her. This plate isn't registered to any HOA. Her voice sharpened. What? He pointed at the plate. It's registered to a private security company. The driver suddenly went pale. Karen turned toward him. What is he talking about? The man didn't answer. The deputy looked between them. Who owns this vehicle? Karen hesitated. The HOA. The deputy shook his head slowly. No, ma'am. He pointed again at the plate. This SUV belongs to Collins Property Solutions LLC. Karen stared at him. That's the same thing. Not even close, the deputy said. The wind moved softly across the ranch. The fence snapped again. Crack. The driver looked like he wanted to disappear. Karen was staring at the SUV like it had betrayed her. Then the deputy asked a very simple question. Do you know what Collins Property Solutions actually does? Karen opened her mouth, but no words came out. I watched her face carefully, because right at that moment, another vehicle turned onto the dirt road behind a patrol truck. Not a police car. Not an HOA vehicle. A dark gray county truck. The deputy noticed it too. He muttered quietly under his breath. Oh, this just got interesting. Karen followed his gaze. The truck rolled closer, gravel crunching slowly under its tires. And when the man inside stepped out, Karen's confident expression cracked for the first time. Because the badge on his jacket didn't say HOA, it said County Land Enforcement. And the first thing he said, when he looked at the SUV touching my electric fence was, well, looks like Collins finally did something stupid enough to get caught. Karen's mouth opened slowly, and she saw the badge on the man's jacket. County Land Enforcement. The words hit her harder than the electric fence hit her driver. The man stepped out of the gray county truck and looked around the ranch like he had been here before. His boots crushed the gravel slowly as he walked toward the fence. The deputy gave him a small nod. Morning, Ray. Morning, the man answered calmly. Ray stopped near the HOA SUV and studied the bumper touching the electric wire. The fence snapped again. Crack. A small blue spark flashed. Ray looked at the driver. You parked it there. The man swallowed. Yad. Ray nodded slowly. Bold move. Karen stepped forward quickly, trying to recover her confidence. Excuse me, she said sharply. We called the sheriff about a violent property owner. Ray looked at her for the first time. His eyes moved up and down like he was measuring the situation. Then he asked one simple question. You with Collins? Karen lifted her chin. I represent the HOA. Ray didn't react. I didn't ask that. Karen blinked. Well, yes. David Collins authorized this enforcement. The driver suddenly looked at the ground. Ray exhaled slowly through his nose. Then he glanced at the deputy. You hear that? The deputy nodded. Clear as day. Karen's voice sharpened. What exactly is going on here? Ray ignored the question. Instead, he turned toward me. You the owner of this ranch? Yad. He nodded. Fence permitted? Barn office? I said again. Livestock register? Yes. Ray looked satisfied. Then he turned back to Karen. All right, he said calmly. Let's start simple. Karen crossed her arms again. Good. Ray pointed at the SUV. Move that vehicle. Karen frowned. Wide? Ray stared at her for 2 seconds like he was deciding how patient he wanted to be. Because it's illegally parked on private agricultural fencing. Karen scoffed. This property is under HOA jurisdiction. Ray shook his head slowly. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. The deputy leaned against his patrol truck quietly, watching. Ray stepped closer to Karen. Ma'am, this ranch sits outside residential zoning. That changed, she snapped. Ray's eyebrow lifted slightly. Show me. Karen immediately held up the same paper again, the cheap printed notice. Ray looked at it for less than 3 seconds. Then he started laughing. Not loud. Just a tired laugh. The deputy chuckled too. Karen's face turned red. What's funny? Ray handed the paper back. This isn't an expansion order. Yes, it is. No, he said calmly. It's a fake compliance letter. Karen pointed at the signature line. That's Collins' authorization. Exactly. Ray replied. The driver looked like he wanted to sink into the ground. Karen stared between them. You're telling me the HOA president gave us fake authority? Ray tilted his head. Oh, you think he's the HOA president? Karen hesitated. He is. Ray looked at the deputy again. The deputy scratched his beard. This keeps getting better. Karen's voice rose. What are you two talking about? Ray pointed toward the SUV. Collins Property Solutions. Karen looked at the logo on the door. The driver shifted nervously. Ray continued. That company has been under investigation for 6 months. Karen froze. Investigation? The deputy pushed himself off his truck. Fraud complaints, he said. Karen shook her head immediately. That's ridiculous. Ray looked back at the SUV again. You know how many fake HOA enforcement reports we've received? Karen stayed silent. 37, Ray said. The wind blew across the ranch again. The fence snapped softly. Crack. Ray continued. Same pattern every time. Karen's voice was quieter now. What pattern? Ray pointed down the road. Find properties outside HOA limits. Then he pointed at the fake notice. Print fake violations. Then the SUV. Send people out to scare the owners. The driver's shoulders dropped. Karen looked at him. Is that true? He didn't answer. Ray continued. Most people panic. Karen's confidence was draining fast. They pay fines, move fences, sell land cheat. The deputy added calmly, or sign HOA agreements they never needed to sign. Karen looked like the ground under her feet was disappearing. That doesn't make sense. Ray shrugged. It does if you want land. Karen turned toward the ranch. Her eyes moved across the open fields. The barn, the horses, the acres of land. Then realization slowly crept into her face. You wanted the ranch, she whispered. Ray nodded once. Dingo. The driver muttered quietly. I told him this place was too big. Karen spun toward him. You knew about this. The man raised his hands. I just drive the truck. Ray crossed his arms. Where's Collins now? The driver hesitated. Town office. The deputy pulled out his radio. Karen suddenly panicked. Wait. Both officers looked at her. Her voice shook slightly now. I didn't know about any investigation. Ray studied her face carefully. You sure about that? Yes, because impersonating enforcement officers is a felony. Karen's eyes widened. I didn't impersonate anyone. Ray pointed at the SUV. You showed up in a marked vehicle. Then the fake notice. Claimed jurisdiction. Then the radio she used earlier. And called it enforcement. Karen looked like she might pass out. That's what Collins told us to do. Ray nodded slowly. Good. Karen blinked. Good. Means you'll be very helpful when we talk downtown. The driver whispered under his breath. Oh man. Karen looked back at me suddenly, for the first time since she arrived. The anger in her eyes was gone. Only fear remained. I didn't know, she said quietly. I shrugged. You still parked on my fence. The deputy chuckled. Ray turned toward the SUV again. Go ahead, he told the driver. Move it. The man stepped toward the door carefully. He grabbed the handle again. Nothing happened this time. The engine was still running. He quickly climbed in and reversed the SUV away from the fence. The moment the bumper cleared the wire, the fence snapped loudly. Crack. A long blue spark danced across the line. Ray looked impressed. Strong current. Dares used to break the old fence, I said. Karen slowly sat down on the wooden fence rail behind her like her legs stopped working. The driver shut off the SUV. Silence settled over the ranch for a moment. Then the deputy's radio crackled. He spoke into it quietly. Karen looked up slowly. What happens now? Ray answered without hesitation. We visit Mr. Collins. The driver looked terrified. I'm not going back there. Ray glanced at him. You don't have to. Karen frowned. What does that mean? Ray pulled a pair of handcuffs from his belt. The metal clicked softly. The driver's face drained of color. Wait. The cuff snapped around his wrists. Karen jumped to her feet. What are you doing? Ray guided the driver toward the patrol truck. Arresting a witness. Karen stared in shock. You can't just. The deputy stepped beside her calmly. Yes, we can. Karen's breathing got faster. This is insane. Ray placed the driver in the back of the patrol vehicle. Then he turned back toward us. You coming with us? The deputy asked me. Karen's head snapped toward him. He's the victim, Ray said simply. The deputy shrugged. Still might want to hear what Collins says. I looked across my ranch. Then at the SUV. Then back at Karen. She looked like someone who had just realized she had been standing in the wrong story the whole time. I'll drive myself, I said. Ray nodded. Fair enough. Karen suddenly stepped forward. What about me? Ray studied her again. You can come too. Relief flashed across her face. Then he added one more sentence. As a cooperating witness. The relief disappeared instantly. The deputy opened the patrol truck door. Karen hesitated, then slowly walked toward it. Before she climbed in, she turned back toward me. Her voice was quieter than before. You knew something was wrong, didn't you? I looked at the electric fence snapping quietly beside us. Then I looked back at her. I knew Collins. Karen frowned. You know him? I nodded slowly. Yet. The deputy looked curious now. How? I opened the gate and stepped toward my truck. Because 10 years ago. I paused before finishing the sentence. He tried to steal this ranch the exact same way. Karen's eyes widened again. Ray muttered under his breath. Well, I'll be damned. Because none of them realized yet. The electric fence wasn't the trap. Collins was. Karen sat in the back of the patrol truck like someone who had just stepped into a nightmare she didn't understand. The deputy closed the door, and the truck started moving slowly down the lawn dirt road that led away from my ranch. Ray followed in the gray county truck. I pulled my pickup behind them and drove the same road I had driven thousands of times before. Except this time the quiet morning felt different. Karen kept looking out the back window at my land getting smaller in the distance. The driver sat beside her in handcuffs, staring at the floor. No one talked. 20 minutes later the small county building came into view. It wasn't fancy, just a brick building with 2 flags outside. But the moment we parked, Karen noticed something that made her stomach drop. There were already 3 police vehicles outside, and 1 black SUV she recognized instantly. That's Collins' car, she whispered. The deputy opened the door and motioned for them to step out. Karen walked slowly toward the building, her eyes locked on the SUV. Why is he here already? She asked nervously. Ray shut his truck door. Because we asked him to come in yesterday. Karen stopped walking. Yesterday? Ray looked at her. Yet. Her voice came out thin. But. He sent us to the ranch this morning. Ray nodded. That's why we knew he'd try something. Karen felt cold suddenly. Inside the building the air smelled like old paper and coffee. A few officers looked up when we walked in. Then Karen saw him. David Collins was sitting at a metal table in the middle of the room, still wearing his expensive jacket, still looking calm. But the moment he saw Karen walk in with the officers, the calm cracked. Karen, he said slowly. She stared at him. You told us the ranch was under HOA expansion. Collins glanced at the officers, then back at her. We'll talk about that later. Ray pulled a chair out and sat across from him. No. Ray said calmly, we'll talk about it now. The driver was placed in another chair nearby, still in handcuffs. Collins' eyes moved between everyone in the room. Then he leaned back like he was still in control. This is unnecessary, he said. Ray slid a folder across the table. It stopped right in front of Collins. 37 complaints, Ray said. Collins didn't touch the folder. You think that proves something? Ray opened it. Photos, fake violation letters, property records, statements from homeowners, then one picture from my ranch, taken months ago. Collins' jaw tightened slightly. You've been watching me, he said. Ray shrugged. Watching you try to scare people off their land. Collins laughed quietly. That's a big accusation. Ray leaned forward. Impersonating enforcement officers, fraud, attempted property intimidation, fake compliance orders. Collins' smile slowly faded. Karen stared at him. You said the ranch was inside the HOA. Collins finally looked at her directly. You should have just done your job. Her voice rose. That man could have been arrested because of you. Collins scoffed. He electrified a fence. I leaned against the wall quietly. You parked on it. Collins turned toward me. For the first time his confident mask slipped a little. You again. Ray noticed the tension immediately. You two know each other. Collins didn't answer. I stepped closer to the table. 10 years ago, I said slowly. You tried to pressure my father into selling that ranch. Karen looked between us. You never told me that, Collins muttered. You never asked, I said. Ray's interest grew. Start talking. Collins leaned back again, but the calm was gone now. Your father owed taxes, he said. Not enough to lose the ranch, I replied, but enough to scare him. Collins said. Karen whispered. Oh my God. Ray nodded slowly. So you tried again. Collins smirked. Land like that doesn't come around often. Ray closed the folder. Well, you picked the wrong ranch. Collins crossed his arms. You think this sticks? Ray stood up. Your driver already confirmed everything. The driver avoided Collins' eyes. Karen stepped back from the table. You lied to all of us. Collins didn't even look at her. You followed orders. Ray gestured toward the officers. Take him. 2 deputies stepped forward. Metal cuffs clicked around Collins' wrists. For the first time, real panic flashed in his eyes. You don't understand what you're doing, he snapped. Ray answered calmly. Oh, we do. Collins was pulled toward the door. He looked back at me one last time. You think this ends it? I shrug. You tried that once already. The door closed behind him. Silence filled the room for a moment. Karen slowly sat down in the empty chair he had just left. Her hands were shaking. I almost helped him steal that ranch. Ray softened his tone slightly. You also helped stop him. She looked up. How? Ray pointed at the fake notice. You brought the evidence. Karen exhaled slowly, the weight of everything finally hitting her. The driver was taken to another room. Karen stayed at the table quietly for a long moment. Then she looked at me. I'm sorry. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. Just honest. I nodded once. Next time, I said, don't believe someone who says they own land they've never worked on. Karen gave a weak smile. Outside the window we could see the patrol vehicles leaving with Collins in the back seat. Ray stepped beside me. That fence of yours, he said. Yeah, best trap I've seen all year. I chuckled. It's just a fence. Ray shook his head. No. He looked out the window at the road leading back toward the ranch. That fence protected something bigger than land. I knew exactly what he meant. Later that afternoon, I drove back down the long dirt road toward my ranch. The sun was lower now. The horses were still grazing quietly. The electric fence snapped softly in the breeze. Crack. Blue sparks dancing along the wire. Everything looked exactly the same. Except now, no one was trying to take it. I leaned on the gate for a moment and looked across the land my father spent his life protecting. Then I muttered something he used to say all the time. No one gets to tell you what to do on land you bled for. The fence cracked again. Crack. And somewhere far down the road, an empty HOA SUV was being towed away.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories.